I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and welcome to everyone.
Morning.
This is our regular meeting of the County Commissioners, January 10th. Serving you today then are Commissioners Luke Johnson, Doug Nagel, Dallas Roskamp, Chris Hollingsworth, and myself. Also, Administrator Steve Ewing and our HR Director, Kathy Feste. You received a copy of the packet. In there is the agenda. And Steve, I see you've got a few additions to the agenda as well.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on the consent agenda, please delete Auditor's Warrants 110 of 22. We have add-on Commissioners Warrants this morning of $35,952.47. At 9:02 a.m. approximately, we're having a new employee introduction from EMS. And at 9:30, I emailed everyone, Beth Wilms and Lisa DeBoer will be here from Southwest Health and Human Services for their annual update.
Very good. Thank you,
Those
Steve.
are my additions, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else, any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Okay. Chris moved and
Supported.
Dallas second. Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, the same? Passed unanimously. Also in your packet then was a copy of the minutes and the entire consent agenda. The first item was the minutes of 12/27. And as we said, we deleted the auditor warrants of 1/6 and the auditor
110.
of 110. Yep, 1/6. The 1/6 is still there. The 110 is deleted. Thank you. Then you've got the add-on warrant then of the $35,952.47. Hospital warrants, treasurer's report. Okay.
I move for approval.
Thank you, Luke. The consent agenda has been moved and
I'll second.
second. Okay. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Okay. Kathy, you've got a new employee to introduce for us?
So actually he is not here. It's JD Womberg. He's a new paramedic. And I called over there. They must be busy because nobody answered at EMS. So
Okay.
hope he may still be able to make it this morning.
If he stops in later, sure.
Meeting.
Very good. And in case he doesn't, can you give us a little brief bio of him in case he doesn't make it? So he started,
Can we wait to see if he makes it?
Okay.
or not?
sure.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, then Nick, if you're ready for your road and bridge report, please.
Good morning.
Morning, Nick. Morning.
Not much for me today. For the project updates, we awarded that box culvert contract, I think at the last meeting, to R&G Construction. We're still working on some various township projects that they requested us to do. And we have a bid opening coming up for our overlays. We've received some interest in them already, and I like early interest. I feel like that means they're really getting after it, so that's good. So that's it for updates for me right now. Next up would be purchase of some cutting edges. In the original packet submitted, we didn't have all the prices yet. I handed that out this morning. As you'll see, this order dollar-wise is quite a bit more than what we're used to seeing, but it's rather big order. We're kind of pretty much need a set of everything. So quantity's high, and then I'm sure the prices have inflated on this like everything else. But as you see, we got 3 quotes, and they're all pretty close to each other. So I think that's just what the prices are. So.
Okay. So I assume you recommend that we go with the low
Yep.
bid then with the
Yep.
$52,461?
Yep, I recommend low bid. The bottom two we've you know, those are the ones we regularly quote, and then we found another one that we got a quote from there, so.
And that little bit longer delivery time won't be a hindrance for you?
I don't think so. You never know. It could be, but I don't know. I think it's probably worth going with the low bid. I know last time we went with, I think second low, but we were talking, if I remember right, I want to say it was like $300-400, and it was like a 3-week difference in the window or something. So it seemed a little bit different when we did that, but you know, this is what, $800 or whatever, and the ranges kind of overlap a little bit. So I don't know if it's worth
Okay.
paying. I mean, if you want, we can go with the second one. Should be here a little bit sooner, but I think it's probably worth rolling the dice on this one.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move we go with the Chris Engineering of 52-461-54.
Very good. Thank you, Doug.
I'll support that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? Yes.
What was budgeted for this?
We don't have a specific line item for cutting edges. It's lumped in with equipment repair and maintenance. The last 2 years we've been under on that account. I can't remember exactly what it was. I did look it up a week or so ago. And I want to say that the underrun was somewhere in the neighborhood of 40,000. So I mean, if you want to look at it that way, the underrun from the last 2 years about covers this whole thing. So it's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna hurt our budget, I guess.
I was
So.
just curious if you had the line budgeted.
Yeah, no, this is all lumped in with equipment repair and maintenance, I believe is the account name. So
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously.
all right, next up for me would be maintenance updates and miscellaneous. We had 2 new guys start recently. They've been working out well thus far. Seem to be catching on quick, so that's always a plus. Last month we've been doing a lot of plowing. We got 2 blowers running and a dozer running, so lots of snow to move. Yeah, that's been about it for the last month, I guess. So, maintenance wise,
Yes, Doug?
Say, Nick, is the mechanic position been filled? Or
no.
That's still open? Is that the only one open? Or-
Yes, I think we have another resignation coming though, so I think there'll be a maintenance worker open, but it's not official yet. So,
Okay.
but yeah, the mechanic position's been open. I don't know, 3-4 months now or more.
Since September 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not even getting applications for it, unfortunately. So, so yeah, that'll be nice. You know, I'd really like that filled too, because that position helps plow snow from time to time. So,
What are the qualifications that we have listed for that mechanic position? Is
2-year degree or equivalent experience.
yeah.
so very workable, yeah,
Oh yeah, it's not like it's
restrictive at all.
need a bunch of certifications and 10 years experience or something like that. You know, it's yeah, you know, pretty entry level qualifications could get in the door on that. So, but
Was anything major the dealerships are doing?
yeah, there's like nowadays a lot of the equipment repairs say it throws a code. We can't do anything about it because we don't have the the computer stuff. But we have warranties that cover a lot of that. We've utilized our local shops in town. They can do some of that stuff too for us. So
Not to say that our mechanic is not busy, because there's plenty of maintenance type work.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maintenance upkeep, oil changes and so forth on that, but for the
Yep.
technical part, that has to go.
Tires, stuff like that. So there's plenty to do there, but like some of the, we're not really set up to deal with a lot of the in-depth computer stuff.
Right, it's all proprietary anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we probably could if we had a mechanic that knew how to do that stuff. We maybe could buy the software, but I don't think it'd be worth it because it's so expensive to get all that. We're probably better off just farming that part of it out.
Yep.
But luckily enough, the mechanic we did have, he went to an equipment operator position, and he's been a real big team player, helping out with, the mechanic stuff as needed too, so.
And the same thing, when we do bring a mechanic on, he'll be there to help give some history, some guidance
Yep.
too.
Yep, so, yeah, we're really lucky to have Troy, so. Next item for me, we have a lot of problems with snow in the right of way. People like pushing it out of their driveway and like leaving it in our ditch. It's against the law. It's posted on our website.
Yep.
Reason for it being against the law is it can create site issues. See if it freezes, it could cause damage to our equipment. It might cause extra drifting. I don't think this is a new problem. I would say this has been going on for a long time. It's just worse on really snowy years, but we've been sending out letters. We're trying to approach this from a team player aspect first. Like, we're not out to get anybody tickets right away. But, I certainly hope it doesn't come to that, but we're starting with letters. I may need to come back and we may need to get a little bit more aggressive with this, but I don't know. I just kind of want to put that on your radar. I feel like we're seeing more of that this year than the last few years for sure.
We've had more snow, yeah.
We've had more snow, and I understand, they were first going to say to me, well, what am I supposed to do with it? Like, well, you can't block the sight of anybody and you can't make it drift worse for us, so I don't really have a good answer yet, but.
Any response back on the letters that you sent?
I have not heard anything back yet, no. So hopefully that fixes it, but like I said, we may need to pursue this a little bit more. I'll be back in touch before we get too aggressive here, but yeah, just kind of want to put that on your radar. Let you know we're seeing a lot more of that than normal, so.
Are you thinking your next step would maybe just with a personal visit, a follow-up?
Probably, yep.
before
Probably
you-
phone
before
call
you
and.
get the main involved in anything, yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably try to talk to him next, see what they say then.
You're gonna volunteer to do that, right, aren't you? Nick?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a fun conversation, but
it's never fun.
no, everybody's frustrated with it, had enough with it, so.
And we're just starting into January. We've got a
That's
little ways
what
to go.
worries me the most, like the time of the year we have all this snow already. It's like, oh boy, that's not good. And, we got a lot of intersections. One I saw personally was, out by Cargill, like the snow is partway up the stop sign already. And it's like, oh boy. So we'll blow them out. And
I see the state did blow their stop signs. They went through that whole area.
okay.
So it helped you some.
Okay.
I mean, you still actually then, I seen the railroad had a payloader on that intersection anyway,
Okay. The one I was talking about was like a mile west of,
on 4.
yep. I think it's our County Road 55 on the south side of the road there.
Oh, you mean 8th Avenue and 55? No, not 15, 55, okay.
Yeah, 55.
That's not too bad.
I think it was 55 and 4 on the southeast corner.
Oh, yeah, near Ian Cunningham there, yes.
Yeah,
That's,
that one-
yeah, that is bad, yeah.
That one I looked and like the
That is-
snow was partway up the stop sign and like, oh geez, we got to take care of
It
that
is,
today.
yeah, a lot of blower work, yeah.
Lots of blower work, and then we get any snow and it blows again and it fills right back in. So
Vicious cycle.
yeah, yep. So it takes a lot of money to run those blowers.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. We got to do it. So you'll probably see us out and about blowing and pushing snow with the dozer probably all winter now, I'm guessing. But is what it is. So we'll keep after it. But
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, please.
Is there a state statute regarding the pushing of snow
Yes.
on right-of-ways?
there's 2 of them. They're listed on our website. If you go under notices, I believe, under the Highway Department tab, there's 3 statutes listed there. 2 of them deal with snow in the right of way. And I think the letters we sent, I think we referenced those. Either we referenced them or we printed copies and put in there. So, yeah, it's against the law, but I don't want to start with asking the sheriff to go issue tickets. I'd like to,
So today is your friendly warning to the people to stop pushing snow on the right of ways and over the roads and.
Yep. Yep, and if, hopefully that's all the farther we have to go with it. So,
To help get the word out, do we have any money in an advertising budget where we could actually put an ad in the paper, something like that?
Oh, sure, you've got printing and
We could do that.
You've got printing.
Yeah, if you-
Put that in. Big
Maybe a
idea to
radio
put it in the
spot,
Three-Star.
things like that.
yeah, not a bad idea at all. So if you'd like to see us do that, we can certainly do that too. Okay, we'll do that. Which papers were you thinking?
Our two official papers, obviously, and then you check with them too, and if they think the Peach would be appropriate as well too.
Three-Star would be a
circulation.
better opportunity, I think, you'd hit more people with the
with the
3-1
Peach.
on Mondays,
Yeah,
Facebook page too.
Facebook too.
Facebook, yeah.
Kathy's an expert at getting stuff out on Facebook on for us. She'll help with that.
Sounds good. We will.
We were out there when we were closed.
We'll get those ads out there then. So, last item I have be the Minette Kranz Reservoir Road. If you remember, we closed that last year. Looks like people could still get it down it now if needed, but and we talked to that local resident there that was having the problems, and he said to leave it. You know, we should be able to leave it alone for now, but just want to let you know if we get another event, we may need to close it. So, like last year. So, just a heads up if you hear anything. You know, I'd report it the following meeting. But
Are you thinking more for spring? Because right now, I'd assume it's blocked in with snow, isn't it?
he said it wasn't right now, which is kind of surprising. I figured it would have been, but yeah, he hasn't had any issues yet. So
Blown clean.
could be. I don't yeah, I had, like on my yard, for example, the wind must have just blown out of a weird direction. It just didn't fill in like it usually does. So maybe that's what we saw out there too. I don't know. But just so you know, that's something I'm guessing we'll have to do at some point this winter again. So. Outside of that, that's all I had for this meeting. Anybody have any questions for me?
Okay, very good.
All right.
Thank you, Nick, and again, pass along to your people. We appreciate the work. I know it's a lot of extra hours. And do you understand there's some community meal being put together for snowplow people?
Yeah. Yep. One of the banks asked if they could drop pizza off for the plow guys.
That's nice. A little show of appreciation. That's very nice.
So I think the plan is for them to do that today, actually. So yeah, that is nice of them. So all right. Well, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Kathy, then we'll go back to you then.
So JD is here now, so I will call you up. The hot seat.
Welcome, Jamie. Morning.
He joined us yesterday, full-time paramedic with the ambulance service. And I don't know if you want to just pick up brief.
Sure. My name's JD Wallenberg. I was born and raised in Jasper. I've been a paramedic for about almost 16 years now. I did a brief stint when you had the helm over at the ambulance. And then I took a job in Rosebud, South Dakota, covering the Indian Reservation. I've been there for about the last 14 years. And now I'm home. So thanks for having me.
Well, it's always nice to have talent come back home. That's always nice. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Glad to have you on board. Thank you.
Yeah. Questions? No?
Kathy, does this pretty well fill out our needs right now, or you still have some openings?
We have all of our full-time spots filled and then several part-time spots as well. So I think they're planning on starting their new schedule in February.
Awesome.
So,
Congratulations.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I was congratulating Kathy. I was congratulating you for having
Do
fully
you know how
staffed.
hard a work it is to find it? No. That's it. Okay.
thanks for coming.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you, JD.
you're all-
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Okay. Well, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so have you got some other personnel items
I
too
have
for us?
just one more item.
Okay.
So, and I passed it out this morning, Katie Johnson in Extension has resigned for another opportunity, and today will be her last day. So I do need formal board approval to accept her resignation. And we are already advertising to fill this position, so.
Very good. We'll take action on that then. So we're looking for a motion then to approve Katie's resignation.
So move.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded then to approve Katie Johnson's resignation.
regretfully.
Regretfully, absolutely. Wish her well in her endeavors going forward, so. Is she still gonna be staying in the community, I hope?
I do not know.
All right, further discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Same, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. And I see that Beth has got here a little bit early, and we are a little bit ahead of schedule. Are you ready now, or we can take a short break? Great, okay. Would like to, good morning.
Good morning. Didn't even give them time to get their coats off.
That's right.
That's okay, that's okay. So,
Yep. Well, Beth Wilms and Lisa DeBoer are with Southwest Health and Human Services, and they're gonna come give a little presentation today for us, so appreciate you coming down.
well, thank you for having us. You know, usually we try and get here before the snow flies, and I don't know, time got away from us during 2022, and here we are in
I think winter came
2024.
early too.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. So what we have done since I came on board in 2017 is to provide you with an update of some highlights of Southwest Health and Human Services. And when we first started doing this, we were not as financially well as we wanted to be. And that was a concern for all of us, certainly for county commissioners, county boards, administrators. And so you have seen some folks come and go. Sarah Kirchner was the person who would sit with me, and then Nancy Walker came when we had a transition, and now many of you might know Lisa DeBoer. Lisa is out of our Rock County office. Lisa worked for Rock County prior to coming to Southwest Health and Human Services, so I'll let her introduce herself and give you some nuggets of information about her. And so, of course, I think everybody wants to know financially where we are in the past 5 years when I came on board in 2017 and where we've been, what we've been doing. And you know, during that period of time in 2017, we really looked at efficiencies. We looked at areas that we could potentially be more efficient, more effective, work smarter, not harder, those kind of things. And so that mantra has really kind of driven us for the last 5 years. And so I wanted to give Lisa, after we got our audit completed by the state auditors, to let you know where we are and what we've continued to do. I will tell you that we continue to scan the environment all the time to ensure that we are working smarter, not harder, and that we do have more efficiencies. And so we're doing that on a regular basis. Our executive leadership team meets twice a month to ensure that we are having these conversations so that when we talk about levy dollars and when we do our ask to you, that again, we are trying to be as efficient and mindful of county taxpayer dollars. And so I could talk forever. You all know that. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn it over to Lisa to talk about the financial part, what we've done with audit, with our reserves. We did have a request from the Southwest Health and Human Services Board earlier this fall about looking at our funding formula. And so we did do a review of our funding formula, and I'll let Lisa touch on that a little bit so that you understand that the funding formula that we utilized initially will be the funding formula that we will continue with. So I'm gonna turn it over to Lisa, and then what I'll do, Dan, is I'll give you some highlights of things that have occurred during 2022 and where we look at going for 2023. So good to see all of you. I think when I saw some of you last time, I was not feeling well at the AMC conference, and it took me 3 weeks to get rid of that supernova cold that my grandchildren left with me at Thanksgiving. So anyway, so.
Beth, if you
yes.
would, you mentioned levy, just for clarification for everybody else too, where we wound up standing with the Health and Human Services levy. And again, for history, you know, we have to set our levy in October.
Correct.
And it's not to exceed. So it was very nice that as things finished up, your levy request was actually less than what
Less.
we'd originally thought.
Right.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let Lisa talk a little bit and then I will give you more information. How does that sound?
Hello all. Is this good? Do you want me to turn this or? Okay, my name is Lisa DeBoer. I'm from Rock County. I spent, I'm born and raised in Rock County, so I'm kind of a regular there, I guess, and I enjoy my city and my area to live in. I have 24 years of service in county government. I spent 10 years in the Rock County Auditor Treasurer's Office, and then I became a fiscal supervisor in the Health and Human Services Office before we merged in 2012. So I've got at least 14 years here in 14 years in Health and Human Services for experience in some of this area. So I kind of have a different roundabout picture of both sides of it, both the Auditor Treasurer side of it and Health and Human Services side of it. So anyway, I'm going to just kind of go over, I'm going to recap our financials for the end of the year. We ended with a cash balance of $4,854,271, but with overall cash investments, we're at $11,454,719. Our public health and our human services funds are sitting very well right now. We ended up, revenues exceeded expenditures in public health of $897,223, and human services was revenues also exceeded expenditures by $857,344. And as you know, that is expected because we get our second half tax settlements, now, and we use that money so because it's not like a regular paycheck. We all get paid every other week or whatever. We have to reserve those monies because we only get levy in May and June or November and December. So our expenditures, that has to cover our expenditures, and our grant dollars have to cover some of that stuff. So you'll know we'll be higher right now at year end than we would in March, say. So, but we did end up well, and that was a good thing. And I like seeing those numbers. Let's just put it that way. Better than what we had a few years ago. So anyway, budget-wise, I'm just going to go over the 2023 budget a little bit. We're in our second year of our union contract with our employees, and this year the contract was scheduled to be for 4.5%, up to 4.5% increase. We have pay performance increases. We don't have steps. So, it's based on your performance, and you can have up to a 4.5% increase. So that was factored in, and the agency also covered health insurance cost increases. We've been running around 12 to 14 open positions on a regular basis. It just seems like we kind of have ebb and flow of that kind of position type situation. And HR kind of says, we finally think we're getting a handle on it, and then all of a sudden we got somebody else that's moving on to a different.
How many total positions do you have?
How many what?
Total positions do you have?
230.
233 roughly, I think. Yeah.
So I think, Luke, we're down from when I came on board. I think we're at 245, 247. And so, we kind of wanted to know where that sweet spot was. And we're thinking it's between 230 and 233 is what it is. And so we've reduced the number of staff that we've had. And I'll kind of talk about that when I give more information.
Sure.
So.
We find that one of the major positions we struggle with is public health nurses. We've had a hard time filling those positions because it's hard to pay at the wage that we pay at versus what hospitals and facilities are paying at. So, and then we've had, you have some of your standard turnover and everything else. Child protection's another area that's hard to keep people in. It's a high level stress type of position and what they deal with. There was no new positions planned for our 2023 budget, so that is as stands. We currently have an agency fleet of 35 cars. We got the last 6 that were rotated in this last year. So all the cars are from 2020 to 2022. I chose not. We're not replacing any this year. We're going to stay at the fleet as is, basically because in 2020 COVID did not allow for open visits to clients and everything else, so the mileage is not high on some of those vehicles. So we want to make sure we're using the best financial strategy, and then we'll continue that lease on those vehicles, because some of those vehicles only have 25, 30,000 miles on them. We're gonna continue to use them.
And 100% of our fleet is leased now, that's
Yes,
correct? We
100% of
don't
it is
own anything.
leased. We no longer have any owned agency vehicles. I think that we got rid of the remaining owned vehicles as of 2020, I think it was. We finally got them. So
And they're being utilized. I had checked out a vehicle for the three of our staff to come to Pipestone today, and I was bumped, and so all of them were out, and I had to drive my own vehicle, and I'd rather drive a fleet vehicle. So they're being utilized, which is a good thing, because I think when I came on board in 2017, they weren't being utilized they weren't being robustly used. And so, again, the expectation is that staff will use our fleet. When you have that many fleet vehicles, again, there's an efficiency there. And so, of course.
all ours were in use today too.
Yeah,
And
so
I actually
Laverne-
rode with somebody else as well up to here. So anyway, well, that's good. That's what I wanted. IT typical, you know how that is, typical replacements, and we stretched out our computer replacements to a 5-year schedule, so that's been better utilized as well for replacement costs. Of course, as you know, there's always malware, and you're always trying to fight anybody hacking into your systems, and we try and keep that upgraded and on a regular basis. As far as targeted case management rates, overall our allocations were they held steady this last year. Sometimes we see where the state was really dropping our allocations and kind of putting that burden on the counties. But we did see some of the allocations that some were up, some were down, and overall it was kind of consistent. There was a large increase in 87,232 directly related to the CP opioid response allocation, which is kind of a grant for that particular purpose in child protection area. And then there was also a slight increase in the VCA grant, which is 34,500. So that's a nice grant too. That's one we get annually in July, and it's a pretty good large sum of dollars. For 6 counties, we get about $1 million right about July. So. And then out-of-home placement aid for ICWA was up about $27,000. So, and ICWA, out-of-home placement aid, ICWA related to the tribes and stuff, depending on clients that are based related to that, that's where those dollars become allocated from the Minnesota Department of Revenue, and that comes through. And it comes through the counties, and then they are forwarded on to the social services. County burials were down a bit last year, so we did decrease the budget for that. But that's kind of an ebb and flow kind of thing, whether we have county burials or not. Public health, they held steady in their budget. There was no per capita increase in the budget for public health. We did change some numbers due to the census. Every 10 years we have a census update, and so we do that. And we kind of reallocate, but the per capita held at $14.25. The local public health grant was also higher this year, which was good for them. I mean, they've gotten some of those monies back from 2013. Yeah, they weren't given. So there's an adult health survey that will be going on, and there's some increases in CTC funding. So COVID's been we see COVID yet, but there's been no major vaccinations, and everybody's, we haven't had to go out and do vaccinations since 2021. So our COVID response is down as far as the implementation grant goes for that. So that was kind of the budget in essence. The audit went really well. It was kind of my first audit, but I've worked on some of the audit stuff. There's just little things to correct and make changes on. Otherwise, it generally looked pretty good. We're right now in the audit, they always look at what you have for reserves. Right now, public health is doing very well. They're at an A-month reserve. Human services currently was right at a 3-month reserve. Generally, the auditors like to see a 5-month reserve. So we're still working on building that back up from a few years ago when we had a financial. It takes time, and that's just a bigger part of our budget. Generally, I consider, when we look at our splits and stuff, 86% of our budget is roughly human services and 14% is public health. So.
And our audit is still being done with the state auditors.
Yes, and we're still completing our audits with the state auditors. So, and I've already gotten an email. So we'll start the rounds going around for 2022 again. So funding formula. It was request to review the funding formula And for some of you that are new, I just want to explain this. Our funding formula for calculating how the levies are created for each county, it's kind of like a three-legged stool, and there's 3 equal parts. We use the tax capacity that's presented by each county as a number. We use the population, our census population, and the third one is, we call it our SEGA report, but what that is a social services expenditure fund report, and we use an average of 3 years. And what those are is for our social service expenditures for our adult services, our child protection services, our disability clients, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a calculation on all those costs. So we've had that in place since 2012, since Southwest Health and Human Services was formed. We've been using that factor over 10 years. We looked at it, we took a look at it, and we tried to look at it in a few different aspects. We tried 100% SEER, which almost weights it too much on just the social services side of it. There's other aspects to that. I mean, we have income maintenance, we have our cash assistance, we have things like that. We weighted it a little bit like 50%. We weighted it on just 710. And when we come back and looked at the numbers and looking at our services as a whole, we wanted to make sure we're serving all our clients within our 6-county area. And we felt like the funding formula that was in place best served its purpose. So we continued with that, and the board, Southwest Health and Human Services Board, agreed that that was the best way to continue with it. I'm glad somebody brought it up. It's good to look at those kind of things. This is also a funding formula that the other merged health and human services agencies use. They use the same type. Western Prairie. There's some other ones in our state that have a merged health and human services function. So then they also use this type of formula. So anyway. That's about it for me as far as on the financial side.
So I always bring you the annual report, and we're always a year behind because we wait until we get an audited report. So this is a 2021 annual report. Do you want to hand that out, and then you can let. This annual report, the first annual report we did was a very big annual report, and I'm sure we probably put you to sleep with it because it was very academic. It really did lay out all the work that we do, how we do it. And so it was a pretty good primer in terms of the work that's being done by social services and public health. We kind of then went to in 2018, we went to something different. We've done things like case studies. This one is small. It's certainly not the 150 pages that our 2017 was. Number one, we're not quite sure that people are reading it and it meets the needs of communication in terms of the work that we're doing. So we're really doing a review as to how do we get the information out related to the work that's being done. This is really a highlight of the work that was done. And again, we're kind of in a post-pandemic phase, and so we didn't have a lot of highlights this year, but this does provide you with some of the highlights of the work that's being done. And so this year we've already started having conversations about what we'll do for this year, or if we'll do one for this year. Or probably all of you know that people get their information in different ways. Some people like paper, they like an annual report, but a lot of people, we have a Facebook page, we have a website, and is that the best way for us to get our information out in a timely manner? Because this is old information by the time the board approves it. And so again, we're really having that conversation about how do we get our information out? How do our communities want the information, or do they even want the information? And so again, we're kind of doing a review of whether or not an annual report is maybe antiquated and we don't need to do it anymore. We started doing it because we thought we would, it was a necessity for public health, and now we are not sure that that's what public health wants either. I mean, so we see changes over 5 years. Certainly, when I came on board in 2017, it certainly looks different than what we're doing in 2023. So that's for you to review, and if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. One of the other things I do on a monthly basis is I do send out a board report. Doug, I think you got it yesterday. Just kind of those things that happen between the time that I see the board in the middle of the month to the next time I see them in the middle of the month. And so just so that the board is aware of some of the things that are happening with some of our community partners and even things that are happening within the agency. So I just kind of want to highlight a couple things. Lisa talked about the funding formula, that was a request by the board to review that. Another request that came from the board during my performance evaluation in 2021 was to look at essential and non-essential services, basically mandated versus non-mandated services. So we took 2022 as an executive leadership team to really do a deeper dive into the work that's being done by us. Are we doing things that we shouldn't be doing? Are we duplicating services that are being provided by some of our community partners? And at the end of the day, we found out that, we are pretty bare bones. We certainly do some non-essential things, but we looked at that, and if we didn't do some of those non-essential things, those non-essential services, programs, resources support our essential services. So, for example, car seats. Nobody in our communities outside of Southwest Health and Human Services will install car seats. And so we have staff that will, if you come to any of our offices, and if you're a grandparent and you want to put a car seat, or you're a new parent, I don't know how people do it. They are very complicated. And once we got ours in after Southwest Health and Human Services did it for my husband and I, said, don't take that thing out. We do not want to have it done again. But it's very complicated. And so that is a non-essential service that we provide that we really feel supports child protection, child welfare, community safety. And we really looked at the folks that are doing that, and it's an additional task that they do. It's not a primary task that they do. And so we let the board know that if we got rid of doing car seats, nobody in the communities is doing it, and so where would our families go? It's a gap in service for us, and we wouldn't be laying off a staff person because that's all they do. It's an additional task. So we really did a deeper dive to look at that, and we said some of the non-essential services, again, that support those essential services, if we didn't do those things, potentially levy dollars would be spent in a different manner, whether it's through law enforcement, through the courts, through any other of our partners, is that potentially there might be a deeper dive with a higher rate of levy dollars being utilized. So again, we are hoping at some point DHS will see the benefit of going to be preventative or early intervention. We know that Minnesota Department of Health has always been early intervention prevention. And so we know that DHS tends to be a little more reactive and respond to crisis. And so again, we are as an organization looking at how do we best use those levy dollars, again, to keep out of those deeper end services. So at the end of the day, we decided we are going to keep the non-essential services that we have. And some of those non-essential services have a really good funding stream for us and probably assist us in some of our other areas. So it kind of provides some revenue for some of those other programs. We know that we see an awful lot of unfunded mandates, and the state comes down with those on a regular basis. Or as Lisa's indicated, our allocations have remained static for many, many years, and so what it does is it does supplement and it makes us whole. So again, ensuring that we are doing our 100% time reporting, we're doing all of our billing. If we have errors in billing, that we correct those errors and we resubmit those so that we are bringing in the most revenue that we potentially can. Dan, did you have a question?
So what I'm hearing you say is that it's a little bit of a misnomer to talk about essential versus non-essential, because if you look at it from a cost-benefit standpoint, it's actually behooves us to still participate in these.
Right, and I think, what we need to look at is just beyond that, the dollars that we spend, is there a return on, not only a return on investment, but a return on value. So a return on value would be those car seats, ensuring that kiddos are placed in car seats and are safe and not sitting on a mom's lap in the front seat of the car. So again, I think that when you take a look at it in totality, really, again, those non-essential services, we're not doing a lot of them, but we do some of them. Some of them, again, are related to some grant opportunities that the Minnesota Department of Health or DHS, Department of Human Services, allows us to look at some pilot programs, knowing full well that at the end of those, if there's not sustainable funding, that potentially those will go away. We did a family group decision-making grant, which was competitive for the first time this year. And one of the caveats was that you had to hire a full-time person to do that work. which again is we really, Dallas, we really looked at it, but we knew that our return on investment and our return on value with family group decision making had been significant. It keeps kids out of home placement or out of the child welfare system. And so we did apply for it. We did get it. It is a 3-year grant, highly regulated, high reporting system. And we're seeing some really good results already within the first 6 months of it. So again, I think that one of the things the board, I think, wants to ensure is that we are reviewing those essential, non-essential, mandated versus non-mandated, and that we, again, are cognizant of the fact that we are the gatekeepers of taxpayer dollars, and we want to be as judicious as we can with that. And again, to get the biggest bang for our buck as we're spending those dollars. We are struggling, as Lisa had indicated, with workforce. I mean, probably not news to any of you. We've had some of our public health positions open for well over a year. We just can't compete in the medical field right now. And you've probably seen that with Pipestone County Medical Center, or people walking away from being in the healthcare industry. I've got a daughter-in-law who is a nurse, and she's walking away from it. She just said, I can't do it anymore. And so we are really looking at recruitment and retention. We believe that we have a very robust set of benefits for staff, but I'm kind of old school. I'm a baby boomer, and so what I see as important to me is certainly different than our baby social workers or our brand new graduates from college. It's way different, and I have to sometimes step back and think what I see as important maybe is not as important as that 23, 24-year-old coming into our agency. So what do we do to entice people to come to work for us? And how do we keep them? I mean, because we certainly don't want them getting trained and doing a year with us and then moving on. I will say that one of the things is money is wages are a big deal. So we are going into a negotiating year this year, and so I believe that probably wages are going to be a big topic of discussion during that period of time. We are meeting on a quarterly basis right now with the union, which is something new for us this past year. Again, one of the things is we're looking at having some high-level discussions, again, not negotiating, not opening up the contract, but really looking at what's going well, where are some challenges that we're seeing. And so, again, I think it provides us an opportunity to communicate and build a relationship with the union outside of sometimes contentiousness with union negotiations. So we've started that, and that seems to be going quite well. The opioid settlement dollars, I believe you're going to have a representative sitting on that multidisciplinary team related to those opioid dollars. Again, we are the point of contact. Public health is the point of contact. How we became the point of contact, we're not quite sure. We didn't get called and asked if we wanted to be, but so you know that there is going to be a multidisciplinary team that will discuss where those dollars are going, what's the best programming, resources, and services to be utilized with those dollars. And the money will be tracked individually by county to ensure that the money that is received for Pipestone County stays within Pipestone County, and you get those services and resources and programming. A mental health update. You probably know that there were some concerns again about financial well-being of the Southwest Mental Health Center, and Pipestone County decided to withdraw from the entity. We were very fortunate with Pipestone County that Western Mental Health Center had the capacity and really had the interest in providing a comprehensive continuum of care for folks within Pipestone County. So, Rock County also pulled out. We're still struggling a little bit to ensure that there's going to be that continuum of care. But I did speak with Sarah Ackerman, who is the executive director at Western Mental Health Center, and she indicated that the state is well aware of this program that they have decided to come into Pipestone County. She is waiting for some licensing from DHS, and you know as well as I do that DHS can be rather slow in responsiveness, and so we are waiting to ensure that the satellite office is going to be licensed. They're aware of it. So right now they can do either telehealth with Pipestone County residents, or Pipestone County residents can be seen in the Slayton and Marshall office face-to-face. At this point in time, no face-to-face can be done in Pipestone County until that licensure has been granted. And so Sarah is very aware of that. She's very cognizant of that and has some great relationships at DHS. So she thinks within the next few weeks that DHS will do a site visit. She's hoping it will be a virtual site visit, that we don't have to wait until somebody needs to come down from the cities, because sometimes I think that people don't understand that Pipestone isn't just, a half hour outside of the cities, or so we're kind of waiting for that. And so the other thing that she indicated yesterday is she felt the transition was going very, very well. They will be embedded into Pipestone County Medical Center, and so they will be providing some crisis services during the 8 to 4:30 or 8 to 5 timeframe. Southwest Mental Health Center was granted the Mobile Crisis Response Grant, and so they will continue to do that in the off hours and on weekends and holidays. So we do still have a little bit of a relationship there with Southwest Mental Health Center. So she said everything's set up and ready to go. She's going to have staff here, which will be that's an investment for our folks in Pipestone County, because really we didn't have anybody that was from Southwest Mental Health Center that was physically in Pipestone County. And so this is going to be, it's a great opportunity. I believe that you'll be very happy with the services provided by Western Mental Health Center. If you have questions related to that, please let me know. But Sarah is a great community partner, and I think we'll be very pleased with the outcome of that. New board member orientation, we'll probably have that in April. We kind of want to give you the opportunity, Doug, to kind of hear all of our acronyms. You've heard some acronyms today. We tend to speak in acronyms and forget. So you can always kind of harness us, rein us in and say, I don't know what that acronym, is. You'll probably get a sheet with 25 pages of acronyms. So, and certainly if any of you want to attend that orientation, we're more than happy to have you come to that orientation and learn more about the work that we do.
For clarification, if anybody wasn't aware, we all assumed that with Les Nath having retired after 8 years, and Les was on the Health and Human Services Board, and again, the governance structure, we've actually got 2 representatives from our board on that, one for the health, one for the human services. And it's actually 3 separate meetings that we have. We have a health meeting, we have a human services meeting, and we have a governance meeting.
Correct.
So with Les having retired, Doug has agreed to step into that position. Certainly appreciate that, Doug. And yes, there's a learning curve, there certainly is. Along with that, our citizen liaison person, and Steve Schultz, wasn't able to continue because of some other demands on his time. So Les has asked to stay in that, and as you all know, at our organization meeting, we have appointed Les then to that layperson as well too. So
that would be nice to have that continuity, during that period of time. So we're very happy that Les will stay on in that capacity. So he's been a great supporter of us. So thank you for allowing him to be our community liaison. One last thing is, of course, we are in a new legislative session. You've seen what the priorities are. Recreational weed is probably it's a big priority. It's as I was told, it was a high priority. So no pun intended. That I know I try hard, Steve. And so we are kind of talking about potentially what some of the unintended consequences of that will be. Will we see some different things? Again, I think from an employer standpoint, what does that mean in terms of being under the influence? How do you determine what's under the influence? So we're just kind of keeping an eye on that. And then the other thing that we're really looking at is that family leave, that FMLA that would be paid. I was at a legislative update on Friday, and again, I think we'll probably see that pass, but I think that there's some contention related to who's going to pay for that. Will employees pay for that? Will employers pay for that? Or will the startup funds and the foundation of that come from that close to $19 billion in reserve? What will happen with those reserves? Will there be one-time funding for counties? We'll kind of see what shakes out. So we're following that pretty closely. And so those are some of the things that are occurring right now. And I could talk your ear off, but I know you have other business to do. And I just really appreciate the opportunity. If you have any questions, I see some of you through, periodically, different meetings. Chris, I think we've got one on Thursday in Slayton. I don't know if you'll be there, but yeah. So, it's always good. I mean, if you're ever in Marshall, please feel free to stop by. Just really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today and provide you with some updates. So does anybody have any questions or need any clarification?
Yes, please.
Last time you were here, you told us that some of the computer programs you were using were basically not functioning. How has that gone? Has there been any improvement?
No. Luke, that's one of those things, that we feel pretty strongly that we use an SSIS, which is a Social Services Information System. We use a PRISM system for child support. We use a MAXIS system for eligibility determination for public assistance. And then we use MMIS for some of our financial.
It's basically our Medicaid system, medical assistance system.
There's been no talk about utilizing some of those billions of dollars for updates. And we know that those systems were, if you've been on a board or you've been following it, I think they were supposed to sunset 10 years ago.
Do they have existing systems in other states that function well?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would hope that they don't try to hire it out like they did for driver's license or whatever else that has been a failure and a waste of money.
Exactly.
I mean, there's got to be a product out there you could just buy and
kind of take it off the shelf.
Right.
And I think New York was one of those. I think they looked at New York and Colorado because Colorado has a system very similar to Minnesota's system. Wisconsin's system is similar to Minnesota's, but I'm hearing that they really are. It's years down the road, and the thing I think, Luke, that is maybe disheartening is that even if you do take a system, because we know that we've taken a system off the shelf and it hasn't worked well, Min Choices, that was a system that we were a little concerned about, is that by the time you get it up and rolled out, it's old. It's old. But one of the things I think that is very concerning as we talk about workforce is that for child support, we're still using green screens. Mm-hmm. And so I know one of our counties hired a child support worker and she got on the computer and she goes, "What is this?" And they said, "Well, that's the child support system." And she's like, "I'm not learning a green screen." And she declined the position because she said, "Why would I learn a green screen when that's not what we use now?" And so I don't know. I'm not hearing anything unless you're hearing anything at AMC. I have not heard anything about systems being upgraded.
I think it's still a priority.
But we're on the priority list, right? So, I mean, it would be, when you have one-time billion-dollar reserves, this would be the time to really look at modernization. And not just for Health and Human Services. I think across the state, but we saw the debacle with the license, and so I don't know. I mean, I know that Chris Cowles, who is our IT director, she does sit on a state panel that is talking about modernization, but I can tell you I've been a director for going on 23 years, and we've talked modernization for 23 years. And
it's going to be a lot more costly if that shuts down.
Well,
then what do you do?
Well, so for example, we are SSIS, which is where we can get our funding, our billing for any of the work that's being done by our social services, our social workers, is that it goes down on a regular basis because it's held together with paper clips and rubber bands. And so it goes down. And then the state's kind of like, well, it's down for a full day. That means all 87 counties are down. Nobody can put their information in. And that is our foundation of our case notes, of our contacts, of our information related to all of our folks that walk through our doors. And then it comes up, and then all 87 counties and the tribes try and get on it, and everybody wants to get their information in because you have to have it in by the 5th day of the month after the services are provided. And so then it goes down because we're on overload. So I don't know. I mean, I think all of us have kind of said to the state, you need to update we need to modernize. I mean, you can't be using green screens in 2023. I mean...
Well, and it's not just the state. I mean, the federal...
Oh, you're right.
IT, I mean, they're still using computers from the 70s in some cases. And
you're right.
Ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I agree. And when you have these one-time funds, close to $19 billion. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And really, should we be looking at some investments in technology? Because that is a good investment for us. But, you know, I work in the state of Wisconsin, and I know sometimes building those systems, if you don't pull it off the shelf, it takes 5 to 7 years. I mean, if you look at somebody like Deloitte and Touche, or you look at somebody like Maximus that's going to build those systems for you, it's a long process. And sometimes we hire those organizations that don't always know the work that we do. And so then they build a system they think is going to work for us, and it doesn't. And I think
Or
that's...
worse yet, they hire somebody that's just politically connected.
That's true. That's true. You're right. You're right. So I have not heard anything. I have not seen it as a priority. So I don't know. We'll continue to work for that. But I think they kind of, again, say that it's a priority, but I'm not seeing it as one this year. So we'll see.
And then on getting back to the Western Mental Health,
Yes.
has DHS given you any timeline on when they may?
She thought that when she talked to DHS yesterday morning, she thought that she would be able to have the license in place within the next 3 weeks. And then she also is a CCBHC, which is a community-based mental health that allows for a higher rate of reimbursement. You have to meet all the criteria to be certified. It allows for a higher rate of reimbursement, and she thought that would come 2 weeks after. She thought it would be relatively quick. So from a DHS standpoint, I think that's pretty aggressive and pretty responsive. So
Do you think they'll be able to comply with that?
I'm hoping so. We know the person who's going to be doing the licensing, and so I think, you know, we all have her phone number and her cell phone number, so we're hoping. Again, I think she knows that it's a priority for us, so we're hopeful, Luke. So
Good.
yeah, so we'll keep you posted. We'll keep Doug and Dan posted on that. How does that sound?
Great.
Okay, great. We've taken way too much of your time.
Actually, this was very good because we had a very short agenda today, so this actually worked out.
This worked out well. Good then, but everyone wants to kind of go home now.
That's all right. Yes.
Is there any risk of private information being leaked out because of these antiquated systems?
Well, I think that, you know, I think if you would talk to our IT director, she says there's always concerns. She also sits on a national cybersecurity and panel, and really, I think we should all be a little concerned about the amount of hits that we get just as an entity from the Chinese and the Russians trying to get into our systems. She tracks that. It's thousands and thousands a day of hits trying to get into our system. So I'm sure that you guys are seeing the same thing.
Board too. We're constant under attack. Constantly.
It's amazing, isn't it? And so I think that Dallas, that's a concern. And you know, and we have a HIPAA committee, and we really. We have very sensitive information about families. You know, not only do we have employee information, which I consider to be very sensitive, but when we're dealing with child protection, with sexual abuse, with substance use disorder, with mental health, we have lots of information that it does scare us. We do the best we can, and I know Dan and Doug, you'll hear this. Chris comes to the board a lot asking for upgrades to ensure that we can keep our systems safe. And so it's a lot of money that we put into ensuring that data privacy, HIPAA, and again, cybersecurity is a top priority for us. So again, I think, Steve, you're indicating, yeah, you're getting it too, and it's.
She's also really good about, we get random emails about, you know, this is data privacy, this is HIPAA. So it kind of brings it back to the forefront of your mind. Be careful what you open in your emails. So it's really good to get those emails on a continual basis. It kind of brings back to the forefront. We do due diligence as employees as well as the IT itself.
Yeah.
Beth, you talked about how basically we work off of grants, so the reimbursement for that. So of course we have to have billable hours for that. So part of the oversight that I understand you've explained to us before is that the state will actually, or whoever agency will actually take a snapshot of what we're doing at any one particular time, kind of an audit to make sure that we're doing things correctly. How is that impacted when the computer system goes down? So now we got people sitting there, if they take a snapshot, when our computer's down, it really kind of throws us into a disadvantage, doesn't it?
It does, but I do think that DHS is well aware of the fact that they're working with antiquated systems.
DHS is picking up that date.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're not picking on us.
They're like, we're not gonna, SSIS was down for 2 days, and so this is for you. And we're not gonna review those days, so, I mean, I think that they're aware of that.
Another challenge that you've brought to the board before that I would like you to maybe expound upon for our group here too is the case that we've had children with no place to place them. And explain some of the things, the outstanding things that some of our staff has done over and above.
You know, I think one of the things that has occurred, over the past few years, again, is related to workforce. And again, working with high behavioral adults or children is not an easy job. We've seen a lot of our placement options not be available to us anymore, that facilities are closing. Number one, either because they can't sustain a revenue stream to ensure that they are whole and sustainable, but also they're having difficulty finding staff. Everything from nursing homes to child facilities that take on child sex offenders, children with high behaviors, adults with high behaviors where they can't, maybe it's not appropriate for them to put them in a nursing home because of their behaviors. So earlier this year, we had a 14-year-old child who has very high behaviors, is nonverbal, was violent in the home and needed to be removed. And we made 63 different phone calls to find a placement for that child and could not find a placement. So that child then was in our conference room for 2 nights until we found a foster home that would take him on an emergency basis. And so again, I think that those high acuity cases, whether those are children or those adults, and you probably heard that at AMC, is these high acuity cases, we're not quite sure what we're going to do with them. Stearns County then provided an update at AMC in September that said they had 14 children one night in their conference room because there was no place to even land these kids in an emergency situation. So then what you do is you ask your staff to be there 24/7. Where do you get food? If medications, we are not trained in medication management, so I'm not going to ask staff to provide medication to someone. The mom really didn't want to come in and give medication. She did at the last minute. But these are some of the high acuity cases that we're seeing across the state, not just for us. I know that Beltrami County had a kiddo who'd been in a hotel room for 45 nights. The family was providing the 24/7 care for that child, but they were getting weary. Grandma and grandpa were kind of like, I just don't know if I can do it anymore. Aunts and uncles. But again, the child could not go home because of the high behaviors and the violence. And so where we used to see some of those facilities that would take those high acuity cases, we're not seeing them. Or if we do have them, they have a waiting list. And so what do you do? And I do think that AMC did make that a priority also, but I don't think legislatively, what do you do with that? You can't tell facilities to stay open, but we are seeing higher and higher needs, higher behaviors, younger kiddos with higher behaviors. And so I think it is a concern for us. It's something that we should track. Knock on wood, last year we had 1 child and 1 adult that we just really could not find a placement for. And so we're hoping that we don't become a Stearns County where we've got 14 kiddos sitting in a conference room.
Setting up cots,
Setting up cots, yeah. And, hoping that we've got an iPad that we can put, the web on.
At our public safety policy meeting a couple weeks ago, they said there was only 62 beds for kids in crisis in the state.
For the state.
That's awful.
That is awful. You're right. And then of those 62, how many of them will take high behaviors where the kiddo has been violent, has thrown a computer screen through a window or, those kind of things. Dallas, I think it's a concern, and I know it's a public safety concern.
It's a public safety concern, yeah.
Where do we put these kiddos? I mean, certainly it's not in our best interest to put them in our conference room and provide care. We struggle to find foster homes, and would a county foster home be an appropriate placement? You don't want to, again, put anyone else in danger, but I certainly don't want my staff to be in danger either. But we do have a responsibility to ensure that these kiddos or these adults have a safe place to be. So it's something I think, again, crisis beds, what do they look like? And again, I think part of the problem why we don't see crisis beds is there's not a reimbursement rate that provides sustainability for those. They're a one-on-one most times.
$2,400 a day.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And what we see is, we saw Anoka Regional Treatment Center be one of the places that we could put folks, but, Anoka wants them in and out because they've got a waiting list too. And then, so they don't reach hospital level of care. Once they don't meet hospital level of care, the counties pick up the entire cost of that at $2,400, $2,600, $2,700 a day. That's a lot of money. And really for no services, it really is. We are just keeping this person safe during that period of time. Doug is like, oh my gosh.
I'm listening.
And we're so fortunate. You talk about counties, and again, it's an individual county's responsibility. So I'm so grateful that we've got this joint powers group with 6 counties that have come together to form Southwest Health. And so we've got this expertise, we've got this economy of scale. Had it not been for that decision to join this joint powers group, this would be all sitting on our laps solely. So I appreciate the work that you do for us through the joint powers group.
I appreciate that, Dan, and you're right. We do have content experts. I mean, as a joint powers, we do have that level of expertise that while you might not have, I mean, you have staff that are content experts, but if somebody is gone, we have somebody in backup, whether that person's in Marshall or Laverne, that can come in and cover those caseloads. So I do think that the economy scale and the fact that we have content experts that can handle those caseloads and are not just generalists, we're very fortunate that way.
It really does. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Again, we certainly didn't mean to monopolize
If I could have you just stay sitting for just a little bit.
Okay.
Because in case we want to refer back to you. So the next thing, any other questions specifically for Beth and Lisa at this point? The next item then on our agenda then is the appointment of this commissioner then to the opioid settlement. So if you wouldn't mind, as long as you're here, we'll take advantage of that so you can answer any questions to that.
Sure.
So Steve, can you go ahead and introduce this question then for us?
Yes, received an email on January 4th from Ann Oren at Southwest Health and Human Services requesting a commissioner from each county to attend the planning meetings. It says it's not necessary that the chosen commissioner sit on the Southwest Health and Human Services Board. During the meetings, they'll share information on the settlements as well as local data regarding opioid use. Using a holistic approach of needs in our communities will be conducted and input from all partners will be gathered. Recommendations for allocations will be forwarded to Southwest Health and Human Services Board for final approval to funding being spent. This is a long-term event, looking at getting funding over 18 years to date in our fund. If you noticed on your treasurer's report, we're up to about $65,000 so far. And I just got an email 2 weeks ago. We have to sign a bunch of forms so we can get some from retailers now.
Correct.
So we're
Correct.
working on that as well too. Once that arrives, we'll work with Amanda and we'll get that ready to go and bring that for board approval too. So might even be seeing more of this. Who knows how this is all going to play out over the coming years.
I think you're right, Steve. I think that there are several different opioid settlements that are out there related to whether that's a manufacturer or, again, like you said, a retailer or what that is. This one in particular is an 18-year settlement. Again, you'll see some monies trickling in over the next 18 years, which I can tell you I won't be here in 18 years. So I won't see the end of this settlement funding. But again, I think Ann indicated that, it doesn't have to be someone that sits on Southwest Health and Human Services. If one of you has a keen interest or a passion for substance use disorder, certainly I would encourage any of you to sit on that. I think it's going to be a nice multidisciplinary team to kind of talk about what's going on, because probably what's going on in Redwood probably looks different than what's going on in Ivanhoe, and so it'll be a nice opportunity to kind of see what's going on with some of our partners.
And kind of back to that whole collaborative approach that we talked about, that's how it landed in your lap. The counties looked at this and says, well, this is opioid settlement money, and of course we know that the major cost on that has been on health and human services, so that's where we thought it'd be the most appropriate to have you administer this. So.
And law enforcement too.
And law enforcement.
And county attorneys.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Public health will not be taking the money and will not be, I mean, we're just kind of the point of contact. We're facilitating the meetings,
pass-through.
but it's a pass-through for us. And so again, looking to our content experts within the communities, whether that's law enforcement, the county attorney's office, schools, whatever that may be. So public health won't be spending the money. It's going to be going out into our communities to ensure that either there's early intervention, prevention, treatment, all of those kind of things that whether that's housing, or basic needs, we're not quite sure. It's a pretty open list of things that will meet the criteria for this funding.
Great. Okay, any more questions from any of you guys? Can't understand what it's about. Anybody willing to step up and take this on? Any volunteers for this settlement group? Like I said, it doesn't have to be somebody with Health and Human Services. It certainly would give us a little bit more background as well too, so. You'd be willing to step up to that? Great, I appreciate that.
I'll let Ann know, okay?
Very good. So then I think we need to actually take action on that. So is there a motion then to
I'd make that
appoint
motion.
Dallas?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded to appoint Dallas as our opioid settlement representation. Okay, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, the same. Thank you, Dallas, appreciate that.
Steve, maybe you want to reach out to Ann too, okay? Because I think she's going to try
You have
Dallas.
my email address.
Yeah,
so
but I
you-
think, Steve, I have your email address, but I think, Steve, if you want to send the contact information, it
in the
comes
book.
officially from you and not from me, and,
I'll send it right to Ann.
yeah, send it right to Ann. I think, Dallas, she's looking at maybe the first meeting being in February sometime. I think
That's what
that,
she had on here too. so.
yeah, I think she's looking to start getting that together so that we can start some programming and services. So thank you for doing that, I appreciate
Sitting
it.
on the Public Safety Policy Committee, we've been accused of overreaching into the Health and Human Services, but
I don't see that.
it's a safety issue.
It does become a safety issue. Again, whether or not kiddos are in our conference room or they're over in law enforcement, I think that it is a
upstairs.
public safety issue. And I think mental health does become a public safety issue. So I don't see that, but I like collaborating, and so I'm happy to see you sit on it.
As we saw in the news this week with the 6-year-old shooting the teacher,
Yeah.
obviously it's a public safety issue.
Yeah, it's just not a human services issue. That goes beyond the scope of the work that we do. There's obviously, we have some work to do. So I think, and maybe that's a good thing for us to work on with AMC, is that there is a collaboration and there is a dovetailing between public safety and Health and Human Services. So anyway, so I could talk forever, you guys, so I'm gonna, don't let her come back again for a while.
Thank you, Lisa,
Bye.
thank you, Beth.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you Thursday.
Sounds good.
And I won't see you, but I'll see
I,
you
I,
Wednesday.
I might be there Wednesday, I'm not
Okay.
quite sure how things are gonna pan out here yet, so.
So thank you, guys. Have a great
Thank you.
afternoon.
Bye.
Bye now.
Okay. I think other than committee reports, is there any other business? I think we're pretty well caught up. Kathy, you didn't have any other personnel items? Those are squared away, so, okay. Very good. Well, at this point, then I'd like to go ahead and start our committee reports. Would you like to start out for us, Luke?
Sure. On the 19th, AMC environmental staff and leaders met with Bowser, which was a pretty good meeting, and then we met with MPCA, which maybe not so much. Yeah, I guess I told you last time how our DNR meeting went, and there have been several meetings with the drainage work group I heard about yesterday at MRC, and apparently, they still are getting the impression that they're gonna move forward with trying to get legislation to make drainage projects much more, complicated, expensive, and cumbersome for all.
For the US,
Well, no, it's not that, it's, currently under 103E for, any kind of ditch projects, the statutes are very clear. There's a process you have to follow. Counties follow that process. And frankly, I think there's enough, notice and public input and all those good things but they want to make it more, add to the requirements to a level that would be very expensive for landowners that own these systems to get anything done, and would delay projects, potentially a year or more, which, I mean, if you have a serious, blowout or whatever, you don't wanna wait a year to fix it. It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, when we met with Bowser, the head of Bowser actually was saying that he had spoke to the DNR commissioner and, was trying to get across that, you should work through the process the way it was designed, where they have this drainage work group that's been in existence for more than 10 years. Normally, they meet outside the legislative session to, build consensus for whatever changes there may be in law. And then once they have that consensus, make adjustments as necessary. But it's not typical to just go to the legislature and basically blow off the drainage work group, because that's not the way it's supposed to work. And I mean, even like the corn and soybean groups and whatnot, they weren't even contacted prior to hearing about this. And basically, John Jaski from Bowser was kind of saying that, well, he tried to reach out to the commissioner from DNR, Sarah Strawman, and that he had not had very good luck, and was kind of apologetic that, he understands how it should work, and he was trying to promote that concept, and she basically blew him off, just like she blew us off when we met with her the week before this meeting. So, we didn't feel very good about how they were handling. And then when we met with MPCA, Brian Martinson from AMC would, spell out things we were concerned about, and they wouldn't even respond. I mean, or provide any feedback, which I found even more disheartening, because you think you'd at least get a little comment or something, and basically they just almost ignore you. And there again, they want to continue. They continue to ask for more staff, but as I've shared in the past, whether it's for permitting landfills or whatever. I mean, as far as I can tell, they're not doing much of anything, and to continue to need more staff to do what? I mean, you're not doing much now, as far as we can tell. It doesn't make sense to me, I guess. And they want to continue to make it more burdensome, or have stricter rules to follow, and yet these rules aren't they're not put through the legislative process, so there can be any public comment or input on how it's going to work. Anyway, then on the 20th, MRC Executive Committee met with the new firm that we hired to get lined up for our meeting yesterday. On the 21st, the Highway 23 Coalition met. Our former chair decided to step down, and we elected Jeff Bertram, who's a new Stearns County Commissioner, as our new chair, and Bob Burns as our vice chair. We discussed the Corridors of Commerce priority project that we submitted for the 4-lane extension southwest of Wilmer. That was submitted on the 30th of November. I think they'll be making a decision by early May. And then we also talked about our congressionally directed spending requests for a preferred route study from Marshall to Granite Falls, Foley to Mora, J-turn at Belclair Drive in Waite Park, and a modified interchange at Highway 9 and 23 in New London. And then they're trying to schedule Congressman Stauber for our annual meeting this spring. On the 27th, of course, our hospital board met. On the 4th, the Soil and Water District, of course, our Brad Cruselbrink and Bill Folger were sworn in, being newly elected again. And we were sad to hear that Laura is resigning on the 12th. But she's going to take a job with Bowser as a soil specialist or something, so we'll still get to see her sometimes, because she'll just be working a bigger area instead of, I think she previously served a number of southwest counties. Now she'll be serving basically all of southern Minnesota through Bowser. And so it's nice to see her, getting a promotion of sorts. And Nicole had a favorable review, and then we reviewed the 2021 audit. And of course, last Friday, we had our organizational meeting, and then yesterday at MRC, we met in Alexandria. We had a presentation from Gary Johansson, who's the Norman County Environmental Services Director, about the EMS grants that we've been trying to get for a number of years now. Senator Weber's been the author of that on the Senate side. I mean, they're only seeking $3 million for, I think, the biennium, which is only like 30 grand per county. But I mean, the state gives zero now for a mandated service that, I think the only money that we currently get is what, a federal grant that's.
Talking about emergency management
Yeah,
funding? Yeah, we get about 16,000 in federal grant.
Right, and then we, of course, use local levy dollars to cover the rest. And for something, I mean, especially nowadays where emergency management, I mean, we see it in the news almost every day. The fact that the state provides $0 just seems unconscionable, but hopefully they'll decide to chip in something.
Along with that, the state doesn't even fund their own department. It's all funded with federal grant dollars, and they're dependent on disasters and emergencies to pay for emergency funding at the state level.
Oh,
They don't even get a direct appropriation from the legislature.
that's pretty sad.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the things we heard about, and then he also talked about some different solid waste issues. So we had a robust discussion, of course, on demo landfills again, and the fact that MPCA wants to have them lined in the future, which of course would make them so expensive that it's unlikely that many counties would have the money to do that. Makes you wonder where all the stuff's going to go. We had a discussion about waste to energy facilities, which we think is a good idea. I mean, the ones that they have are functioning well. They're higher up on the waste hierarchy than landfilling. And yet the state seems to want to shut them down, which I don't understand why, because all of them that are open, they meet or actually they exceed all the federal standards for air pollution and whatever. And obviously there's not enough room to keep landfilling all this stuff, so why wouldn't you want to burn it and produce energy? It should be seen as a renewable rather than something that you're trying to shut down. We also what else? I guess I had some ongoing discussions about our various priorities and whatnot. Of course, county program aid and transportation funding and the drainage issues. In fact, I think they're supposed to have another drainage meeting Thursday, and normally they don't meet at all during session, but they're trying to head it off. I think Bob Meyer, who's the second in charge of DNR, he told some of the people that it was not his intention to move this forward to the legislature. But we can't seem to determine who exactly is the one driving it, but our suspicion is it's the commissioner herself. But anyway, we'll hope that they just resolve to go through the drainage work group and not introduce legislation. And I guess that's about all I have to report.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Luke. Chris, you ready?
Sure. Yep. On November 30th, we had the FEMA flood map meeting at the EMS building. And then I had a pretty short December due to a lot of meetings not being held because of the holidays. So the brunt of it was the AMC conference. Fortunately, I don't have my notes for that. I wrote it in the packet as I went through and seemed to misplace that. The only real notable one from my transportation infrastructure meeting was, I believe is it MnDOT that has a new head now? Yep, and that was a lady. She was there, and she actually, unlike other people that was appointed by, being known, somebody known, this lady was actually an engineer for, I'd like to say, close to 30 years. So I think that would be a nice, rather than have a political puppet up there, have an actual engineer might actually help a little. I don't know, maybe being too optimistic, but other than the AMC, I had our PCM or county board meeting on the 27th and PCMC, And then on the 28th, Dan and I had a PCMC quality board meeting. So I haven't had any meetings yet this month. So.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Dallas, you ready?
Yeah, December report, December 2, had a public safety Zoom, that was preliminary to the AMC conference. And the people at the cities are still talking about eliminating cash bail. And I just don't see that as a viable, and there's nothing we can talk about against it, but that they don't seem to listen. So, and December 5, the AMC, our public safety, we had have a new vice chair, which we do every year, and I nominated David Ebinger from Clay County, from Moorhead, and he was elected. So got to know him a little bit through somebody, other personal friend there. So he'll be good at that. Dr. Peter Cussie was one of the speakers, a lot of history, and one of the things I took from him was nobody follows a pessimist. If you're a pessimist, nobody follows you. I wonder why. And then we went to several different sessions, one on retirement and other things. December 6th was Gordon Graham. He talked about how many new commissioners we have this year. 80 new commissioners out of 400 and some total. Mm-hmm. That's a big turnover. Mm-hmm. And we all know somebody that got voted out that didn't retire. I know at least 3 personally that ran again but got voted out. Charlie Sano was one of them. Been on several committees with him. A session on public safety. The county south of the cities has an embedded social worker in the police department. She's full-time. She rides with the same guy, and he's not called a police officer. He's something other, so they don't have to call him a police officer.
Like a community liaison or
something like that. I got it in my other notes, but I didn't write that down. And it sounded like a great idea, but how can you afford it? They had 36 other people in their department, the police department. So, and he said it took us some while to getting people to agree to do it or to treat him like a police officer, not like somebody that's. But he said it's working well for him. But a lot of times it's situations you don't need a police officer; you need somebody to talk them down. But
Dallas, is that a professional mental health person too? That's
yes, she was a licensed social worker. She was like 30 years old, so she had a leap of faith to be involved in that kind of a thing, you know.
Stearns County's done that too. They had a meeting for us at one of our MACA meetings that they've got embedded social workers, mental health professionals riding with deputies and police officers. Yeah. Talk them down. It keeps a lot of these people that are having these emergencies out of the mental health, temporary holding areas. If you can do that.
Because usually that doesn't help them
no,
to
but
detain them. No, I mean, bringing them up here and detaining them doesn't help the situation.
Not at all. I mean, you need to deal with the problem, not, haul them.
Makes the problem worse.
100 miles away to a facility and put them someplace. If you can take care of it at the scene, a lot of times you can do that. And that saves money. It might be costing money there, but if you can keep them out of a mental health facility, behavioral health facility, and we know that they're short, we're short of beds, short of staff, short of people and transporting and all that. So I think you're going to see more of that.
And isn't that, my understanding, that's kind of the concept Beth was talking about too with this crisis intervention. But again, having somebody in the area is not the same as having somebody on the scene.
Right.
Yeah.
Have somebody trained and available.
Yeah.
And December 7th was a business meeting of the board. I stayed for that. Yep. And December 12th was a tax meeting here. 13th regular meeting. Plum Creek meeting for that week was scheduled a week later. Got snowed out again, so we're having it next week Wednesday, hopefully. So, and 27th was regular meeting here and hospital board meeting. That's my report.
Good. Then normally, Doug, we'd go to you. Why don't I go ahead and
I've got some.
You got some good, very good. Because Doug, as you know, Doug did go to some meetings with us.
In December I wasn't a commissioner yet, but Les would brought me along and wanted to show me the ropes a little bit, so. I did go to the Southwest Minnesota Private Industries Council with him in December 19th. Attended the Southwest Health and Human Services, December 21. Just learning, trying to see what's going on, get started. Soil and Water on December 8th. Came to the TNT meeting in December. Attended a few board meetings in December to watch again what's going on. And then in January, after I was sworn in, I did have a Prime West meeting in Alex. You'll touch on some of this. Some of the highlights I just was going to go over a little bit. Their checking and savings increased 6.7 million. Interest and investment income was 142,000. This is November, actually. Cash balance increase of 6.8 million due to lower claims, and a total cash balance of end of November 110 million. So again, just starting, learning. So
Also, you'd gone to Prime West the month before as well too, so you've actually been to 2 Prime West meetings.
yeah, I did.
Yep.
Yeah, in January or December. I did.
December, January.
Yep. And that's all.
Okay, thank you, Doug, appreciate that. To elaborate a little bit on that large increase in the Prime West checking account, it's a bit of an anomaly. And yes, they figure it's lower utilization as part of it. And I serve on the finance board there as well too. And at the finance committee, we talked about the fact that let's not set our expectations. I think this is normal. We don't want a year from now people saying, well, we've got $3 million less than we had last time coming in. It's because of this lower utilization. Still, we think part of it is an offset of COVID as well too. And all the experts really thought that once COVID had subsided that we'd see a large boom, a large increase that would actually make up for the lack of utilization before, but we have not seen that at all. So yeah, for my report then, December 1st, then I had Prime West. And like Chris, this month with vacations, and as you know, I had COVID for a week, so I didn't have a lot to report this month either. I did have, you talked about truth and taxation. Then on the 13th, then I also sit on the Prime West Quality Control Committee, like what we have here at the hospitals here as well too, so I was up for that. The following day, on the 14th, then a group from our Rural Minnesota Energy Board went over to Mankato, and we met with Senator Nick Franzine. Is that how it's pronounced? Franz? I can never pronounce his name correctly. And just bringing him aware of all of the need for transmission. And it was a very, very worthwhile meeting. He came away with a much better understanding and appreciation for how important transmission lines are. So I think that was well worth the time on that. Then on the 16th, I did have a Zoom call for the PACE committee. You guys are familiar with PACE committee through Rural Minnesota Energy Board. That's that clean energy loan program. On the 19th, had our SMOC meeting. I did attend via Zoom on that. Again, our new administrator, so trying to get, in fact, I'm going down today. Part of the executive team is going to be meeting with Amna today to go through her 90-day review. She's been with us for 90 days, so.
That went quick.
that went really quick, yeah. And other than that, that was, you mentioned on the 28th, we had that quality performance then at the hospital as well too, so. Yep, and that completed my report for the month.
So I didn't give any follow-up on that. All of our quality scores have gone up again.
Yep.
So hitting a lot more of their goals and exceeding some of their goals, so it's good to get that report on there.
Some of the issues they look at are, it's a broad thing. They got the surveys, of course, the patient surveys, so that's kind of a objective type thing. Sometimes it depends on who responds and so forth. And our numbers are so low that it's hard to get a true mean from that, because one comment either way can really throw that curve off with such a small sampling data. But all in all, yes, they're doing a great job there.
Any news on the SMOC Learning Center for North Hiawatha? Anything going on there?
No, and again, Lori Gunnick is our Head Start director. She's working on that application. We think it's gonna be probably another couple of years. It's just that slow. As we talked before, it just seems ironic that they had to own the property before they could apply for the grant. It's nuts. So still in the works yet, still is a priority. So we've got the support of the other counties as well too. They see it. I had asked as well too, why we don't have a classroom in Murray County or in Rock County either. And it has to do basically with the needs, the financial needs, poverty level, if you want to refer to it as that. And Rock County doesn't qualify for a classroom there. And Murray County, I think, just have too small of a pot. I don't know exactly why it was that Murray County didn't qualify. So that's why we are in that queue then for a classroom.
Just had one more thing you
Yes.
forgot to mention. Britta Torkelson, our MRC lobbyist, had met with the Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, and she had expressed interest in, since they have such a large surplus, of doing some cash transportation projects besides the bonding bill, which I thought was a great idea. So of course I relayed that information to Senator Weber and Representative Schumacher, and hopefully they're gonna try to pursue that for the Highway 23 project that I continue to work toward. Because I mean, to me, it makes sense if where you've underfunded roads and bridges for so long and you have this large of a surplus, why wouldn't you spend some of it doing infrastructure work that will have a lasting impact instead of wasting it on some giveaway program? I mean, the governor still wants to give out walls checks, but I don't see that as a viable
That's right.
option, but I guess time will tell what the legislature decides to do.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the federal infrastructure money hasn't come out yet either, has it?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, theoretically, I think it's sort of on the way, but you have to have state matching funds to tap into it, and we haven't approved any yet, so the legislature needs to do that as well.
They just, in the national news, they just talked about this bridge, it was in Cincinnati, where they had Kentucky and Ohio get together and so forth, and they had the dog and pony show with it. So yes, there's money coming, but it's slow coming.
Right.
Another brief update I maybe should mention as well too, ACE. So Jill Touring has started, and Steve has got her set up in her office, and Bill's got her set up with the computer, and she's got her address and so forth, so she's getting going. In fact, she's gonna speak to Kiwanis at noon today, talk about what the ACE program is as well too, so.
Good. She'll do well on that.
Yes,
Getting her broke in quick, huh?
exactly, and she's got a good background on it. In fact, she was working before she even was officially started. She's got things going very well. Any other questions or comments or just discussion? Okay, and I don't think we have any other business, so hearing none, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting then at 10:42. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Upcoming meetings, we all know, just on the 24th, and our next meeting here, and then also the hospital board meeting.
And apparently on the 31st, we're gonna have.
Oh, yes, that's
hospital
special meeting.
education.
Yep.
At 1 o'clock.
Yep, that
Is
presentation.
that bio?
Bio, yep,
That's 20.
that's on the 31st.
Oh, no,